called Stranger in a Strange Land. Yeah?
Thank you, my beautiful friend.
I read that so many years ago, and it occurred to me off stage there, a passage that I've always remembered, very brief passage, which is kind of relevant somehow to our next guest, which is what we have the last... Oh, we're ready to go. I'll share with you tomorrow. Okay. All right. Stand with me on man's old planet, gazing north when sky has darkened. Follow down the dipper's handle, half again and veering leftward. Do you see it? Can you sense it? Nothing there but cold and darkness. Again with both eyes covered. Try once more with inner vision. Hearken now to wild geese honking, bouncing off the strange equations. That's all I remember. And that book was famous for a word that Robert Heinlein coined. Do anybody know what that word is? Yes, grok, exactly. To grok something, to deeply understand something. And really, that is something that our next guest has obviously and certainly done. And I don't need to introduce him much. One of the beautiful things I've discovered about the artists I've been introducing this morning is the incredible humility, humor and simplicity of all of them. They don't need a big rap. They don't need a big rave. So without further ado, the amazing Mr. Dr. Bruce Lipton.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your light. Thank you for your love. I'm so honored to be here today and so privileged to be invited by two wonderful humanitarians that are changing the world, Bhavani and Bharat Mitra. Thank you so much for the invitation to participate with all the wonderful people. I met some of them just a couple of days ago, and I realized I've known them all my life. And I'm so honored to follow in the wakes of my friend Jimmy James Twyman, and then Kirk, who I just met, and I realized he's my brother with a different mother. And my dear friend Russell Walder, who brings the music of the heavens down for all of us. I so appreciate all of you. I'm here today with some good news and some bad news. Might as well start with the bad news. Civilization, as we know it, is about to end. And the good news, civilization, as we know it, is about to end. And I'm so honored to be here because they say, when I came here and I realized this is a community that, though I'm not a permanent member of, every time I show up, I feel I've been here forever. The Byron Shire, the Mullum Magic, it's all so wonderful because they say, well, you're in a bubble. And I go, don't worry about the bubble, it's getting bigger. It's getting bigger every day, and it will include everybody because you are the cultural creatives that have already set the foundation for a new evolution. You're already living it. And this is why the joy of my being here, because I've talked about it for years, but to actually be here and see it in action gives my heart so much joy and love because I know we're on the right track. Thank you for who you are and being here. Thank you. I'd like to start off with a concept of evolution. And when I talk about evolution, what you've all read in the history of your evolution is that over time, there were primitive organisms, and that over time, these primitive organisms evolved and got greater and greater and greater complexity. We went from bacteria to amoebas to worms to clams to fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. And they say, what's the next level of evolution? Well, this is an unfortunate scenario because it missed the understanding of evolution. This is just a lineage, but there's a pattern. And this is what's so cool because I want to tell you about the pattern. Because when you see the pattern, that's where you can see where the future is coming from. And the pattern starts off in a different way. It's not this at all. And I'll give you the understanding of the pattern. It starts with an organism. A new organism shows up on the planet. The next phase of that organism is it proliferates, and through that process, matures and mutates into the highest level of nervous system functioning it can do. Well, the issue that's interesting about that is once you have maximized your nervous system and your ability, what's the next level of evolution? And the answer is the individual cells start coming together and they start forming a colony. They start sharing information. If I have 1X information and we have 1,400 people here, that's 1,400X information for all of us to share. So the colonies started out as just all of them getting together and sharing awareness and learning how to live together. Then the colonies differentiate into an integrated community. And what's so interesting is that integrated community ultimately becomes a new organism itself. And that's cycle 1. And cycle 2 is just a repeat. The new organism proliferates and then starts to maximize its system of intelligence. And what does it do? Then it starts forming a colony, and then it starts getting an integrated community and starts all over again. It's an evolving spiral. And as we go each turn of the loop, we get a higher level of organization, a higher level of evolution. Well, the relevance about all that is we go from organism A to organism B to organism C, and every time we jump up. Well, let's relate it to a real understanding. We'll start with this. Organism A is a bacterium. The first life form on this planet, 3.5 billion years ago, it was formed. And then what it do for 1 billion years is proliferate. And every time it proliferated, it started to get more intelligent, but it maximized its intelligence. It was only so big, it only had so much membrane to offer to its nervous system, and it reached its maximum amount of intelligence. Then what did it do? The bacteria started to form colonies together and communicate with each other and share an awareness. And then what did they do? At some point, they form an integrated colony called a biofilm. And a biofilm is a whole colony of bacteria under one membrane, under one domain, under one roof. And they started sharing and working with each other and specializing their functions and integrating their activities. And then what was the result of that? And the answer is it created the next organism called an amoeba. The amoeba then was for the next 1 billion years. It's a community that is differentiated from bacteria, but it's its own organism. And then what did the amoeba do? It proliferated. And then there was 1 billion years of single-celled amoebas running all over the place, trying to get more and more intelligent, and they started to come together. And as they started to come together, the spiral continued. So let me just reveal the spiral in a three-dimensional understanding. So you see, it's an elevating spiral. I say the first twist of the spiral was the bacterium, the first organism on this planet. And I said, well, what was next? The next was the amoeba. But what is the amoeba? A community of bacteria living under one skin. And I said, yeah, but what happened to them? Well, they proliferated, and guess what? They created us. We are made out of 50 trillion amoebas who came together and said, we can create a community to work together in harmony and maximize the intelligence of the system. And the maximization of that intelligence is us. And I said, yeah, but what happened then? Well, we were that new organism, and we went out and we proliferated, and we got smarter and smarter, and we started to come together in colonies, and as we started to come together in colonies, we started to work together, integrate together, and where are we today? We're on the path to the next organism. The next organism is humanity. We are cells in the body of the new superorganism. And this is our mission, to let go of our individuality and recognize we're all cooperative, integrated communities coming together in the larger community of all. And humanity is going to express the fullest intelligence of 50 trillion amoebas that made us, and 7 billion to 10 billion human cells in the bigger body. And we're on the edge, the cusp of that. Because what we're beginning to recognize is we've been fighting each other for a long time. When cells fight each other in a body, it's called autoimmune disease, self-destruction. And we're on the edge of that self-destruction, but we're becoming aware. We're awakening. The awakening is so great here that you might say, well, we already know that, but the rest of the world is beginning to find out. What's the awakening? We are all cells in the same body. When you kill another cell, you're killing yourself. And the idea is we're moving up the scale. And where are we today? we're in the last turn before manifesting humanity. I said, well, what is the thing that we need for our evolution? Well, a lot of people think evolution is, okay, we change our bodies and we become more evolved. I have to look back and laugh because I remember 50 years ago when they were talking about the computers are coming. And it's going to say, what's going to happen to human civilization? Oh, we're going to be big heads and little tiny bodies. And it's like, boy, did they screw that one up. You know, now we got totally big bodies and little tiny heads. It didn't work that way. The evolution that's in front of us right now is the evolution that is going to change all of that, but it's not a biological, physical evolution. It's an evolution of consciousness. We're not having to change our biology. We already evolved. What we have to change is our minds. We have to change our minds because we don't know who we are. And what I would like to offer is the insight, a step toward creating that humanity, because I want you to know who you are. You're not that individual human. You're a piece of God expressing itself in your own body. Every one of you is a direct connection to the higher knowing of life and love. Every one of you is a spiritual entity in this body, which I want to show you from a scientific level. Why do I want to show it to you on a scientific level? Well, so many people have heard it, all new agey stuff, all that sweet stuff. Oh yeah, we're a piece of spirit, we're a piece of God. But we live in a world today that looks for truth in science. And when science can offer us a truth, that takes us an opportunity to take that giant leap. So I want to really introduce you to who you are. And to start with that, I have to go back to say how we were misprogrammed to find out that we don't know who we really are. Where did that start? Well, it started with old Charlie Darwin. Charlie Darwin said, oh yeah, we got here through accidents and mutations, and we're here in a struggle for survival, a competition for fitness. And we took that scientific belief and we made it a cultural reality. Every day, everybody goes out there to fight each other, what? To be the fittest so they can survive. But in being the fittest to survive, then what are you doing with the people that are so-called less fit? And all of a sudden you realize we're destroying them, and yet they are ourselves. Where did this story really become scientific and mechanical? And the answer was in 1953. In 1953, we were downloaded with the image of DNA. And I remember that day in May when that article came out in Nature. I was a young kid, and I went out on the porch to get our daily newspaper, which was one of those papers with always a big picture on the front page and some headline above it. And I remember this one day I went out there, picked up the morning paper, opened it up, and to my surprise, there was no picture on the front page at all. It was just big, giant block letters that said, "Secret of Life Discovered." And all of a sudden, we all were introduced to the nature of the DNA double helix, the nature of genes, the nature of the fact that we are influenced and we are controlled, and our traits come from these genes. And of the two people that brought us this, James Watson and Francis Crick, 5 years later, in 1958, Francis Crick extends an awareness through a hypothesis. And the hypothesis is called the central dogma. And I'm not making this up. This is actually the name of the hypothesis, the central dogma. And what does it represent? Well, I have it like the Ten Commandments for the reason it is. This is the foundational Ten Commandments of modern science and biology. And what does it say? It says, how did we get here? Who are we? And what does it start with? It starts with the DNA, the genes. And then the genes are translated into something called RNA, which is like a Xerox copy of the gene. And that Xerox copy of the gene, the RNA, is used to make the proteins of your body. And why is that relevant? Because the proteins give you your physical structure. You're a protein machine. The character and quality of your protein machine is apparently programmed in the DNA. And the information only goes in one direction. It comes from the DNA down. Why is that relevant? Because it says you're